Yo, book nerds! I finished reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I had hoped to finish this by Halloween, but I didn't. Life happens. I finished it a few days after Halloween, but oh my goodness, I loved this book. I have not read a lot of horror, and there were moments while reading this that I didn't get scared, but my heart was actually pounding from the anticipation that was built up. And I had never watched any movie adaptation for this at all, but I knew enough going into it that Victor Frankenstein created a monster, and Frankenstein is the man, not the monster. I knew that. But I had this preconceived notion that the monster was some dumb brute that just instinctually had to kill. And spoilers, I'm sorry. Spoilers, he's not. He's not. That almost makes him scarier. Frankenstein's monster can feel, and he can talk, and he can think, and the conversations that Frankenstein and the monster have are chilling, and it is so good. And there are some great lines in here. Like, I really liked some of the lines. For example, at one point the monster says, "Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful." I just love that line. It's a warning, and he does that a couple times. So this story is a framed story. So you have Walton, who's being told this story by Frankenstein, and then you jump into Frankenstein's perspective. The framed narrative is told in letter form, but the part told by Frankenstein in the middle is told in first person. You don't really know if you can trust Frankenstein's opinions on things, and you don't know if you can trust the monster's opinions on things. So Frankenstein tells you throughout the story that this monster cannot be trusted, that he is conniving and manipulative, and he can trick you into believing that he has good intentions when he really has malicious intentions. And it's crazy because the monster will be telling his side of things, and you feel that. You feel compassion for him, and you feel bad for him, and you want to help him. But what about what Frankenstein says? Is it true? Is it all just manipulation? Can we trust this monster? Should we trust this monster? And then on the flip side, you don't know if you can trust Frankenstein, if he's just biased and if he's just prejudiced, and he kind of goes insane. And so you don't know if you really can trust his judgment because he's been emotionally destroyed by this monster, and rightfully so. I'm not saying the monster's a good person because he does kill people, but does he kill maliciously, or does he kill because he's so outcast by society and has no other place to go? I don't know. It's so hard to tell. I go back and forth. Is the monster justified in taking his revenge, or would this have happened anyway? Even if people had been nice to him, would he have still been as malicious and manipulative and out to kill people as Dr. Frankenstein seems to think? It is just so good. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't read it, you definitely should read it. All the parallels in here, from God to Satan and God to Adam and Eve and Frankenstein to this monster, I love it. I love literature behind the literature, so it's pretty fascinating. There was a lot of references to Paradise Lost in here. Unfortunately, I have not read that yet, so I would love to read that someday and then reread this so that I could get more of the references. But I was still able to enjoy it and appreciate it even without having that background. I would give this 5 stars. I definitely recommend. It is a great classic. I see why it has lasted this long. And what's so neat is how Mary Shelley even came up with this story. There was a little introduction in my edition, which is a Barnes & Noble classic, that explained that she was on vacation with her friends and they were telling ghost stories, and they decided to have a competition to see who could create the scariest ghost story. Well, I think Mary Shelley won. This was pretty awesome. And she's a woman telling a horror story. Like, that's kind of uncommon at this time. Let's be honest. I just thoroughly enjoyed this. If you can't tell by my excitement, I loved it. Definitely recommend this. So what is next for me? It's Nonfiction November, guys. So I'm going to be reading a nonfiction title. I just started Glenn Sheen's Daughter, the Marjorie Congdon story. It's by Sharon Darby Hendry. So this story is about Marjorie Congdon and the murders that took place at the Glenn Sheen Mansion. And the Glenn Sheen Mansion's in Duluth, and I live in Minnesota, and I've been to Duluth and I've been to the Glenn Sheen Mansion. So this story really interests me because they don't talk about the murders when you tour the Glenn Sheen Mansion, but they happened. So I want to know what happened, and I'm very intrigued. I've had this book for quite a while. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I'm sad. I've actually had this on my TBR for 10 years. That is way too long for me to have had this book and not read it. So I'm doing it this month. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought of it. I'm excited. I've only read the first few pages though, so I'm not very far at all. I'm gonna be honest, I mostly read fiction, but every year I try to sprinkle in some nonfiction. So that's why I like to participate in Nonfiction November. I'm gonna try to have a video soon of some nonfiction titles that I would recommend, because I think it's great. I think it's great to read nonfiction. I love fiction because you get to live in these worlds that you would never get to live in. But I love learning, and so nonfiction is great because you're really learning something. You can learn something historical, you can read something that is self-help or what have you. It really broadens your mind in a different way than fiction does. And I'm really excited to read this story and learn about these murders that happened in my state, that happened at a place I've been to, and learn a little bit of the history of this area. So let me know if you've read Frankenstein and what you thought of this, if you loved it as much as me. And let me know if you've read Glenn Sheen's Daughter and what you've thought of it. If you enjoyed this video, please like. If you are enjoying what I'm doing on my channel, please subscribe. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for talking books with me.